welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and in today's video I'm going to be reading my library holds, but particularly my thriller books. So before we get into the video, please remember to like this video if you enjoy it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I primarily read thriller, fantasy and romance books, and I post videos every Sunday. So I'm just going to quickly go through the 4 books I'm hoping to read in this reading vlog, and then we'll get into reading. So the first book I'm hoping to read is The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. This is going to be the 4th book by B.A. Paris that I've read. I have really enjoyed everything I've read by them so far, so I'm really excited to go into this one. With my thrillers, I tend to not really reread the synopsis. I'll read the synopsis when I add it to my want to read list, but I don't tend to reread the synopsis before going into them because I don't really like to know too much of what's going on. So that's the first one. Next up is Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This is going to be my 3rd Riley Sager book. I really enjoyed the first book I read of his, which was The Only One Left. I believe that was his latest release at the time, and I'm kind of going through his backlist, so I'm really excited to read this one. I think I'm going to read this one first. And then we have The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I've read maybe 2 Ruth Ware books, so this will be my 3rd one. I really enjoyed the first one and I didn't really enjoy the second one, so I'm interested to see where I fall with this one. And then we have The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This is the 2nd Simone St. James book I'll be reading, and this is really like the last chance for this author. I read The Sundown Motel and I found it really disappointing, so this one does sound more up my alley, but if I don't really enjoy this one, I think I'll just sort of stop reading this author. I think she's had her chance. So yeah, I think the first one I'm going to read is Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, so I will get started and come back when I've got a bit of synopsis for this one. Hey guys, so I'm just coming in to do a quick check-in for this vlog. So I have started and finished reading Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, and I'm going to give this one a 3-star rating. So in this one we follow our main character Emma, and 15 years prior to the start of this book, Emma went to a summer camp and the 3 girls that she shared a cabin with went missing one evening and have not been seen since. Emma was friendly with one of the girls, Vivian, and the other 2 girls, which I think are called like Natalie and Alison. I think it's Natalie and Alison. She was like friendly-ish with them, but she was definitely more friendly with Vivian. A lot of people were accused of having some involvement in the girls' disappearance, and this camp was for like rich kids. So Vivian was like the daughter of a senator. I can't remember what Natalie and Alison were, but they had quite rich parents as well. The camp was called Camp Nightingale, but the kids referred to it as Camp Rich Bitch because that's where all the rich girls went on their summer vacation. So it was owned by a very wealthy family, and the matriarch of this family is Franny. She has 2 adopted sons, Theo and Chet, and Emma and Theo had a little bit of like, not a romance. Theo was a couple of years old. Emma was only I think 13 at the time. She had a bit of a crush on Theo. Obviously he never like acted on it because he was a little bit older than her. Then the 3 girls went missing. Emma was accused, Theo was accused, Franny was accused, so everyone was accused, and then the camp shut down and has not reopened since because it couldn't really get over its tarnished reputation of being the last place that these 3 girls were ever seen. So 15 years later, Franny contacts Emma and she says that she's reopening the camp. It's been long enough, and she wants Emma to come back as like a counsellor to teach the kids painting. So they do like painting, arts and crafts, canoeing, all those kinds of things. So all these sort of counsellors or the instructors are supposed to stay in a sort of cabin together, but there's not enough space, so some of the counsellors have to room with some of the kids, and Emma ends up staying in the exact same cabin that she stayed in with these 3 girls with 3 other girls, and she's trying to discover what happened to these girls. So she never obviously got over this sort of having the 3 girls in her cabin disappear, and we find out what exactly happened that night, who was involved. There's sort of like a big conspiracy going on around this camp. So some of the kids believe this camp is haunted. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories about there was like an old asylum on it, or was it native land kind of thing. So you find out exactly what happened at this camp and what happened to those 3 girls all those years ago. I did like this one, but I gave it a 3 stars. I don't really think it was anything special. So I feel like I've read the Riley Sager books in the wrong order really. So I started with The Only One Left, which was at the time his most recent release, and then I've gone back and I've started from his very first release, and I think this is his 2nd one, and I can definitely see that his writing has come a long way since obviously these first 2 books and reading the latest one. But this one just kind of, not a lot really happened. So we're following Emma as she's trying to discover what happened to those 3 girls and uncover clues around camp and things like that. There's not really a lot to like discover, and it just got a bit boring in parts, a bit tedious. Something happened sort of maybe just over halfway through when I was a bit like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then the ending was pretty cool and that piqued my interest again, but I don't think that those 2 sort of things was enough to redeem this book really. Like, it was still good, it was okay, but I don't think I'd really recommend it to anyone. It was just like, if you're going to read his backlist, read it, but I wouldn't say this is like an amazing thriller and you should go out and read this. It was okay, it was a quick read, there just wasn't really a lot happening. Like, she's kind of wandering around camp, not really discovering a lot, which I guess is kind of the point, but it was just a bit anticlimactic, and yeah, just not really my favourite Riley Sager. I've only read 3 of his books, but yeah, this is definitely, I think, the lowest rated one so far. So I'm glad I read it, because I am going through his backlist and reading them all, but I wouldn't recommend this one really. I mean, if it sounds interesting to you, pick it up and read it, but I wouldn't recommend. I mean, everyone's different, you might enjoy this and I didn't, but yeah, I think a 3, I did not enjoy it, but yeah, 3 star, just kind of a bit average really. Hey guys, so I'm just checking back in. I have started and finished the next book for this reading vlog, which was The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James, and I think I'm going to give this one maybe a 3 star. So to be honest with you, I don't really think this author is for me. I read The Sundown Motel by this author back in January and I didn't really think it was that great, and kind of the same with this one, it was just a bit mid. I really don't seem to gel with this author's storytelling style and writing style. So in this one, we're following a sort of true crime blogger, Shay. She works in a doctor's office as a receptionist and her passion is true crime. When she was a child, something happened to her quite traumatic and the police were involved, and we don't really find out too much about that until near the end, so I don't want to say what happened to her, but she is very paranoid, she doesn't feel safe, like she has multiple locks on her doors kind of thing, and she has a passion for true crime. So years and years ago there was a case in this town called the Lady Killer case, and it was a lady serial killer, and the presumed suspect was a woman called Elizabeth Greer, or Beth Greer. And one day when Shay is working in the doctor's office, Elizabeth, or Beth, comes in for an appointment, and Beth runs out after her after the appointment and asks if she would be interviewed for Beth's blog, basically. So the lady killer, it was a woman, or a suspected woman, who murdered 2 men at least, left them on the side of the road with a note that's, one of them said something like, "Am I bitter, am I sweet, lady," something about ladies, and the handwriting was very feminine, and she is a prime suspect because someone witnessed someone who looked just like her fleeing the scene of the crime. So she was actually acquitted for these murders, and then 40 years later is when she meets Shay. So Shay interviews her for her blog and tries to basically unravel what happens, and we kind of go from there, sort of thing. So I just don't really think I like this author's writing style. I find that the reveals are very anticlimactic and like they come so early. We kind of found out what happened about this like 60% of the way through, and the rest of it was just kind of like meh. And yeah, I kind of felt the same with the Sundown Motel. Like, what happened was revealed quite early on, and then we just kind of faffed around for the rest of the book. So I gave this one a 3 star. Like, I enjoyed this one better than the Sundown Motel, but I don't think I'm going to be reading anything else by this author. I just don't think her writing style is for me. Other people might really enjoy it. I know she's a very popular sort of thriller author, but I just don't really think she's my sort of vibe, and I'm just going to cut my losses and read someone else instead. This was definitely better than Sundown Motel. I do love like a good sort of cold case true crime aspect kind of thing, but this just wasn't really for me. So I don't think it's the book, it's me. This, I'm sure a lot of people have enjoyed this, it's just not really for me. So I'm going to be cutting my losses on this author, but yeah, 3 stars for this one. Glad I read it so I can kind of decide that this author's not. Hey guys, I'm just coming in with a very quick reading update. So I did read The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I'm going to give this one a 3 star rating. So in this one we follow Harriet, or Hal Westaway, and she's, I think, about 18 years old. She's living on her own. Her mum died a few years ago and she's basically been left to fend for herself. She does like tarot readings, fortune tellings down on Brighton Pier, and she's really struggling for money. She didn't finish school or anything like that, so she can't really rely on any qualifications, and she gets money from a loan shark. She borrows £500 and they keep asking for more and more money to make the repayments, and she's gotten to the point where she owes like a couple of grand to them, and they break into her flat and leave some sort of threatening messages, and that's sort of Harriet. She gets a letter in the post from a man claiming that she is the heir to a fortune, saying that her grandmother had passed away and Harriet Westaway was named in the will. She thinks this must be a different Harriet Westaway, they've gotten her confused, but she decides because she needs the money, she's going to go down to Cornwall and basically fleece the family for as much as she can get. When she gets there, things take a bit of a turn and we start discovering things about this family and the past, and things about her mother and how it relates to this family. So the family in The Death of Mrs. Westaway, so there's 4 siblings. So there's Harding, Abel, Ezra and Maud, or Margarita. And Maud no one's heard from for like basically 18 years, for as long as Harriet's been alive. So they never met Harriet. there's a whole thing about, you know, obviously, is she Maud's daughter? We don't really know. We find out at the end her relation to this family. We also have a housekeeper, Mrs. Weston, I think her name was, and she sort of is like a character that plays a little bit of a part. So when the will reading is done, it turns out that Harriet isn't just left a couple of £1,000 like she thought. She's actually been left the entire estate, and Mrs. Westaway has actually written all of her children out of the will. They get nothing. Mrs. Weston gets like £30,000. Harriet gets like the house and all the money in the bank accounts, and the children get, well, the adult children get nothing. So obviously that makes a pool of suspects for things start happening to Harriet. She trips on the staircase. There's like a wire, like a bit of string that's put over a staircase. Someone like removes the bulb from her bedroom so she can't see, and she's put in this like weird attic room, which is just weird. And she continues to like stay in this room even when some of the adult children like are no longer in the house, which is a bit weird. So the concept was really cool, and I was really enjoying it. It just, I wouldn't even say really enjoying it. I was enjoying it. I was waiting for something quite explosive to happen, and that just never really happened. I could see a couple of the twists coming from a mile away. It was just like, it was good. It was a 3-star read. It's still a good book. It just wasn't really anything special. I found myself kind of waiting for something to happen. I thought the clues that were dropped throughout this were pretty obvious, and yeah, this wasn't really my favourite. I was enjoying it up until a certain point. The end was just quite disappointing to me. It was a quick read, however, and it was a cool concept, just I don't think the execution was done very well in my opinion. These sort of twists at the end and like when everything kind of came together, I was a bit confused in parts as well. There's a point in this, so we find out quite early on that Hal's mother's name is Margarita, and the woman in this family who they think she's the daughter of is also called Margarita Westaway. They're both called Margarita Westaway, and they're cousins. For me, what had happened there was kind of obvious, like obviously not gonna say, but yeah, it was just a bit like, it kind of felt like a bit of a lazy thriller, if that makes sense. It was enjoyable. I'm glad I read it because I do want to read like all of Ruth Ware's backlist. I will say so far I've only actually really enjoyed one of her books, which was One by One, and I read that quite a few years ago now. This one, and I think I read Turn of the Key, and I didn't. Turn of the Key I think I gave like 2 stars. This one was better. It was just a bit anticlimactic. Yeah, it was just like, it had like this creepy atmosphere. It had like a really good pool of suspects, and it had this whole thing. So the mystery of like, why has she been left all this money, been named explicitly, but she's not being identified as the granddaughter. She starts to sort of morally think this isn't right when it was just a couple of £1,000. She didn't feel so bad. Now it's the whole estate, but like she was explicitly named. They had her address and everything, and it never actually says in the will that she is the granddaughter. It just says like, I'm leaving all my estate to this person. For some adult children that had been written out of the will, they didn't really all seem that angry about it, and I can understand one of the cases, he wasn't really that mad for a specific reason, and it was just odd. They were obviously trying to, it was set up so they were basically downplaying their anger so that you'd suspect them, I guess. But then like, even at the end when like this twist happened, I don't know, it was just a bit of an unsatisfying ending. Like the concept was really good and this could have been really well done. I just don't think Ruth Ware has it in her, or maybe this could have done with a bit more plotting. And then there was just certain things like the whole Margarita thing as well. There was some quite obvious points in this story you could kind of work out what had happened. So yeah, it just wasn't really the best book in my opinion. 3 stars are still good though. Like, it was a fun time, it just wasn't really the best. So yeah, if you're interested in reading Ruth Ware's backlist, I would still recommend this one. It just wasn't the best thriller I've ever read in my opinion. Hey guys, so I'm just checking in. I have started reading the final book for this vlog, which is The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. I'm probably about halfway through, or maybe just over halfway through. I'm enjoying this one so far. So in this one we follow our main character Cass, and she's driving home one night and she drives through this sort of like deserted road, and she sees another car stop, and the woman doesn't get out or anything, and Cass decides, because it's stormy and she thinks that maybe this is like a setup, this woman has stopped, it's like a trap to get Cass out of the car so she can be murdered or something. So Cass carries on driving, and then she gets home to her husband, goes to bed, and in the morning on the news there are reports that a woman was murdered along the road that Cass had driven on, and she thinks that it was this woman that she saw. So the police are appealing for witnesses and things like that, and Cass doesn't come forward initially because she thinks that she'll be to blame, that she didn't pull over and help this woman. It turns turns out that the woman was vaguely known by Cass. So Cass's friend Rachel worked for this company. Cass went as like her +1 to a party, and she met this woman Jane, and Jane and her went out for lunch one day, and they they had lunch together, they sort of knew each other, they were hoping to become quite good friends. And then obviously Jane has now been murdered, so she had her throat slit with a knife. They haven't found really any evidence. They know a very rough time frame for the murder, and this is when Cass drove past her. So at one point Cass uses a payphone to ring the police anonymously and say that she saw the car, she saw her still alive. They want her to contact them again because they have no idea who this person was who contacted them. And then strange things start happening to Cass. So Cass's mother was diagnosed with dementia at the age of like 44. Cass is experiencing some like memory losses. Very unreliable narrator. So there's like an instance where they are going to get alarms on the house because they live in quite a secluded area. Cass doesn't remember filling out any of the forms or anything. And then her husband comes home one day and the guys are there ready to install this alarm system that Cass had signed up to, and she filled out the contract and everything. There's quite a few instances of this where, for example, she goes to buy a baby growth for one of her friends, and then she accidentally managed to order herself a pram, things like that. So she's suffering from memory loss. She's then experiencing some sort of like hallucinations and things like that. So she imagines the knife on the kitchen counter, really freaks her husband out. She's getting phone calls, right? So the phone rings pretty much the same time every morning. Cass answers and there's no one. There's someone just breathing down the line. And she thinks this is the murderer who knows who Cass is and things like that. And she's just kind of not coping, hence breakdown. So her husband takes her to the doctor and they think she's just stressed. You know, her mum died, she got married all very quickly, and it's all catching up with her and things like that. So I don't know where this is going to go. I'm assuming perhaps it is the murderer on the phone, I don't know. So far it's mainly just Cass kind of basically having this sort of breakdown, and her friends and her family worrying about her. Obviously we don't know for sure if it is the murderer calling her. Everyone seems to think it's just like cold callers, and then obviously the hallucinations and the memory loss. So she's an unreliable narrator, so we can't really trust what's going on in this book, I don't think. I am enjoying it. It's not my favourite B.A. Paris book. I mean, for me, Behind Closed Doors was like no notes really, apart from quite an abrupt ending, but like I still think about that book now, like it was so good. So for me, I don't think this is going to be as good unless the end is very twisty, I don't know. But I am enjoying it. It's a fast-paced read, it's fun, it's a bit different to what I've been reading recently. So yeah, I'm enjoying this one so far, so I'll probably check back in with you guys when I'm done. I've got no idea where this is going to go, no predictions, I'm just along for the ride. So yeah, I'll catch up with you guys when I'm done. Hey guys, so I'm just coming in to wrap this vlog up as I did finish reading The Breakdown by B.A. Paris, and I think I'm going to give this one a 3.5 to a 4, I'm not really sure. I think maybe a 3.5. I did really enjoy this one. I just don't think it's her best work, and I think that the ending was a little bit rushed and a bit too convenient. Like, I didn't see it come in, but it was also, once it was pointed out, I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of obvious. I'm annoyed at myself I didn't really pick up on that. And I think it was just a bit out there. I think obviously we have a unreliable narrator, and the author leans quite heavily on that to kind of throw you off, and then the ending was just kind of like out of nowhere. So Cass, our main character, she starts taking some pills that really like mess with her memory and stuff, and she's like very groggy and things like that. All of a sudden she just sort of stops taking them and she's back to normal. It just was a bit rushed really, I think. It was still good. I'm glad I read this one. I've only got 2 books left to read by this author, and then I've read her entire backlist, and I would still recommend reading this author if you're interested. Like, this was good. It was a bit different to things that I've read recently. It was still a really good time, so I'm glad I read this one. But like I said, 3.5, not her best in my opinion. So that's going to be it for this reading vlog. I hope you've enjoyed if you've made it this far. Comment down below if you've read any of these books. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.